careful back up into that zero reverse when you're calling it off.
Despite all the money and people that have flowed into Elk City, it still maintains a small-town flavor. Citizens still travel the sidewalks, window shopping, or just taking a leisurely stroll. While Elk City still has some of that small-town atmosphere, they are experiencing some big city problems. The crime rate has jumped 20% in the last couple of months, and the population growth has city officials concerned. For example, during 1981 and the first half of '82, the city sales tax revenue rocketed to over $400,000. But since the decline in oil and gas activity, the figure has been steadily dropping.
I think what we'll see is once we bottom out and everybody's trimmed their waistline, so to speak, that we'll see an increase, but that increase will be much more of a steadier curve as opposed to like what we've seen in just a straight up, and we're experiencing a straight down. And that's always tougher from a city standpoint to handle than it is if you have just a slow, steady growth.
But despite the slowdown, Elk City is still growing. Construction crews can be seen raising new buildings every day. Builders are confident that there will be a need for housing when the oil patch returns in full force. There was a critical shortage when the workers invaded Elk City the last time. Apartment complexes like this one will take the place of temporary shelter. Pitch tents and living out of the back of the car will be a thing of the past when the workers return for the next go-around. There are other problems associated with the layoffs. For one thing, the crime rate. Last week, for example, one Elk City police officer was shot to death when he interrupted a burglary attempt. Burglary is the main reason for the increase. George and the rest of the city leaders say it's not easy to control the problem.
Most of us want a slow, steady growth as opposed to what we've been through. It was tremendously difficult to provide the services with the capital expenditures that you have to do and provide the kinds of quality that most of the residents and the citizens deserve. And it wasn't that kind of high of standard. I think we're getting back to the quality of services that we had 3 years ago.
Beneath this big soil in western Oklahoma lie huge deposits of oil and natural gas waiting to be pumped out, and sooner or later it will be. Elk City and the Anadarko Basin have yet to see their twilight years. There is still money to be made, but it will have to wait for another time, another day. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
The crowd of VRA supporters on the Capitol steps today was smaller than it was a year ago. It was quieter, too. A year ago, the state Senate rejected the Equal Rights Amendment by a 27-to-21 vote. Today, the dozen and a half people in green ribbons and buttons stood as a mute reminder that they are still there a year later, and they still want equality. In a morning press conference, Nigh said he didn't see much hope for the ERA in the Oklahoma Legislature.
I think that we gave it our best shot last year, and it would take a miracle to get it passed through the Oklahoma Legislature. And I do not see that miracle on the horizon.
Well, you know, I think politicians tend to think in terms of miracles, and real people tend to think in terms of their daily lives. People that are living equality, they're working hard, they're making their homes, their lives, their careers, their decisions every day, don't need to think about miracles. They need to think about their representatives doing what they elected them to do, which is make a better world for all of us.
The ERA supporters didn't win their battle in the Senate. They didn't win many of their battles in the polls in November, but they did get people involved in a political process that before that time had been alien to them. For them, That in itself was a small victory. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the state capitol.
At 5 o'clock this morning, Gene Hatcher made the grisly discovery. While he had been out coon hunting, someone had murdered his wife Karen and 3-year-old son Jason. Authorities began a house-to-house search for witnesses. All leads pointed towards 22-year-old Gary Wayne Phillips. Phillips lived a few doors down from the victims. He was supposed to go coon hunting with the victim's husband last night, but he changed his plans at the last minute. Phillips was arrested for the murders this morning. Authorities are calling the slayings brutal. The killer shot the baby at least 4 times as he slept in his crib. His mother's body was found in a hallway. A second child was found unharmed, clinging to her mother's lifeless body. The apparent reason for the killing is also tragic. Authorities think the murder stemmed from a dispute over some drugs taken from the victim's house. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Valley Brook.
The immediate cause for alarm was the threat of children playing in the area at the time of the crash, if they were buried under the rubble or unconscious and unable to respond to calls. However, no children had been playing in the vacant lot, one that is used often by the area youth. Fire was the next concern. Fire began to spread quickly and residents fought the blaze until fire officials arrived. When investigators showed up, they found that 2 houses had been hit by the aircraft, but miraculously no one was injured except the 2 pilots, and they were not seriously harmed. Steve Klein saw the plane coming at him. He ran to save his children. When they were secure, he, with some other neighbors, went to fight the fires.
But everything around it was all in flames. You couldn't really get close. The fire department hadn't got there, and we just put out what we could with little fire extinguishers and garden hose until they got there. We had some friends that lived real close to right where it hit, well, the house right north of it. And well, they wasn't home time, thank goodness, but it was pretty scary.
The airplane had just taken off from the base on a cross-country proficiency flight to Little Rock when it crashed. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 in Enid.
Last Friday, more school teachers were told that saving the district money might cost them their job or at least part of their paycheck.
One, will you instruct me to lay off 130 employees February 1st? Or each employee of the school district would take up to a 10% cut in salary for the remaining months of 1982-83.
Courtney told teachers to choose their preference, cuts in pay or staff. Today, the Association of Classroom Teachers chose neither.
Neither of those options is appropriate at this time, and that we will now study the budget and ask for an audit of the budget by the state so that we can see and make recommendations as to what other cuts might be made.
Russell says the ACT will sue the school administration if any personnel cuts are made without their consent. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in Moore.
They asked for a vote on that day.
In the years since it started in 1978, there's been a total of $769,000 paid to victims. And throughout the years, the success rate, which means that the youngsters have completed successfully paying their restitution, has been 93%.
fact is that all of the cuts are going to be in somebody's district, and they're going to affect some individual. But I don't think that that will really, in the final analysis, keep necessary cuts from being made. And I think it is the duty and the responsibility of this legislature and the people in the legislature to recognize those areas that should be cut, that need to be cut, and I think that you can expect that those cuts to be made where they should be made.
This could be an adult women's aerobics class anywhere in Oklahoma City, but it's not just anywhere. These women are keeping time while doing time. They're getting physically fit while serving their sentences at Mable Basset, the state's only women's prison. Prison aerobics is the brainchild of college senior Shauna Warren. She started the class in order to learn more about prison life.
Well, I've learned that people in institutions are basically the same as people outside the institutions. They all need exercise. They all need an outlet for their tensions. Everybody needs a way to work out their frustrations, maybe have a chance to yell a little bit, you know, run around, act a little crazy, you know, a couple hours a week. It helps everybody out. It's not just the people outside that need it, it's the people inside also.
The exercises help the women forget about the pressures of prison life.
It helps depression a lot, and it don't give you time to think. It just helps you, you know, just really get away from it all for a little while. It makes you feel good about yourself. And
you get a lot of pressure off of you, and I really feel good after I exercise. Get a lot of frustrations out too. It helps me, you know, get rid of all the anger, or not necessarily anger, but feelings you keep hidden inside of you, you know, it just lets them all out, and you can just let it out, you know. It's one place where you can just let go.
Shauna's class project is slated for just 1 year. After graduation, she's going to push for similar exercise programs at all of the state's prisons so that other inmates can escape, even if it's only in their minds. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at Mable Basset Correctional Center.
Friday, December 10th, at 427 Southwest 39. At approximately 1:30 a.m., an unknown white male approached the front of this house. After he forced open the front door, the intruder quickly moved to the back bedroom. There, he found 18-year-old Pamela Willis asleep. Placing his hand over her mouth, the frightened woman struggled with her attacker. Subduing the victim, the intruder will then sexually assault her. After raping the woman, the suspect then stabbed Pamela Willis to death. Leaving the victim on the bed, the killer stole the woman's navy blue clutch purse and quickly left the house. I'm Officer Bill Hanneman. This is the actual rope left at the murder scene by the killer. It is described as being a 1/4-inch white nylon rope with a swivel snap attached. The rope is attached to the swivel by steel staples. If you have any information about this murder or any serious crime, call Crimestoppers at 235-7300. All callers will remain anonymous. You could earn a reward of up to $1,000, and you will be a Crime Stopper.
One of our viewers writes and says, I filed a small claims suit. The other side had the case continued but failed to notify me, so that I ended up appearing in court the day the case was first set for trial. What procedure should I take to get something for my time and expense for appearing in court the day and time the case was originally set? Well, while the other party is required under Oklahoma statutes to give notice of a continuance if one is obtained, Oklahoma law has no provisions for paying back a person who is inconvenienced or loses time by appearing in small claims court needlessly because of a lack of notice of a continuance of the case. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. One of our viewers says, in the last year, my husband and I were divorced after 15 years of marriage in the state of Oklahoma. However, after the divorce was legally finalized, we reconciled and we're now living at the same residence. Are we or are we not married? Well, in Oklahoma, after a divorce, an ex-wife and an ex-husband can become legally married in one of three methods. First, both can go back to the court and request the court to set aside the divorce decree, if neither has remarried a third person following the divorce. Second, both could be remarried by being ceremonially married by a judge or a clergyman. And third, both could form a new marriage by holding themselves out as husband and wife and forming a common law marriage in Oklahoma. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. An Oklahoma City viewer says, I've been drawing a Social Security disability check now for some time. Recently, the Social Security notified me that I must refund money that I've received from them over the past 6 months. And frankly, I don't have it. It doesn't seem fair that I should be expected to pay all that money back when they are the ones that made a mistake. What can I do? Well, if a Social Security recipient is charged by the administration with an overpayment, he or she may request a waiver of that overpayment by completing the required forms at the Social Security office. The waiver will be granted if the recipient is, one, without fault, and second, the recovery of the overpayment would defeat the purpose of the program involved or would be against equity or good conscience. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
Wednesday, January 5th, at the Lamplighter Lounge located at 8139 Northwest 10th. Inside, William Brown was spending a quiet evening in the club, unaware that he had but a short time to live. At approximately 1:10 a.m., two white males drove up to the front of the club in a 1973 to 1975 light green or light blue El Camino. As the two men waited in front of the lounge, the passenger began to load a 12-gauge pump shotgun. Then, for no apparent reason, he leaned out the window and fired one shot into the building that struck and killed 22-year-old William Brown. After firing the fatal shot, the suspects quickly left the area. Homicide detectives are currently seeking the two men shown in these pictures as material witnesses to this murder. The first witness is described as a white male in his late teens, 5 feet 7 inches tall, average weight, having blonde collar-length hair. The second witness is described as being a white male, 20 to 25 years old, 5 feet 9 inches tall, average build, with dark blonde hair.
I'm Officer Bill Hanneman. If you have any information about this murder, or you know the identity of the men shown in these composite drawings, call Crimestoppers at 235-7300.
All callers will remain anonymous. You could earn a reward of up to $1,000, and you will be a Crime Stopper.
Over the past 2 days, this has become a familiar scene. The snow and ice have kept service wreckers very busy. Yesterday alone, there were over 100 car accidents in the Oklahoma City area. That means a lot of work for the men who drive the tow trucks. work that can sometimes be quite dangerous.
But you really got to watch them because these streets, you can really slide into somebody just extra quick. Even on wet pavement like this, you can slide into somebody pretty easy. You can get hurt easy because if that cable was to break, it'll cut you in half like a razor blade. I mean, it'll cut you. I've been cut many times by them cables breaking and stuff because they'll cut you real easy.
Ed Allen's been in this business for 9 years. During that time, he's learned a lot about human nature. He knows what to expect from his customers.
How much it gonna cost me? That's the first thing they ask, how much it gonna cost. They understand though, because of road conditions, you know, that it's gonna take us a while to get there in most cases. Gives you a good feeling inside, I guess. Do your good deed for today.
So for Ed Allen and drivers like him, it's that time of the year again, when the elements are at their harshest and the job satisfaction at its best. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Thank you very much, Judge Dacus. Despite what Judge Dacus may have said,
type work for the attorney.
City. You know, for me.
And if you just remain here, then because we'll have the swearing in immediately
I
following.
would like to read this, and everything seems to be in order.
Thank you, ma'am.
This certificate states of the City of Oklahoma City for a 2-year term, and I offer you my congratulations and my thanks. We don't talk about old friends after.
Oral Roberts never liked being called a faith healer, although being an instrument for God's healing, that's how he described it, certainly brought him national recognition.
Heal! Heal! Heal!
His ministry attracted hundreds of thousands of television viewers and millions of dollars, enough to create Oral Roberts University in the late 60s and 10 years later to break ground for the City of Faith, a $150 million medical center. And this is it. The 60-story clinic is Oklahoma's tallest building, but most of its floors are empty. The 30-story hospital has only 4 floors open, 103 beds, and the 20-story research center is just a shell now. Last month, Roberts sent a letter to his followers saying that God had spoken to him and had said to him, ask each friend and prayer partner for $240 to be given now or to send $20 a month for the next 12 months as a seed against cancer. Roberts and his staff declined to be interviewed about the letter or the financial situation that led to its writing. But almost a year ago, there were already some hints that all was not well. At a rare news conference, he acknowledged that contributions were down.
And if that continued somewhere down the line, we would be in big trouble.
Last spring on the Phil Donahue Show, Roberts claimed to have seen a 900-foot vision of Jesus while the City of Faith was under construction.
I looked at that tremendous structure, and my inner eyes, not my physical eyes, saw my Savior just rise up above, behind it and stand above it, and I felt him speaking in my heart.
At least 80,000 pledges have reportedly come. There is belief that enough will follow to complete the center. But there is also some anxious hope mixed with that faith. Fred Briggs, NBC News, Tulsa.
Despite the snow and cold temperatures, most of the major air carriers at Will Rogers World Airport have had no problems getting off the ground tonight. But some of the smaller commuter transports, like Southwest Airlines, have seen short delays in and out of Texas and New Mexico.
We've had some flights out of Dallas that's been delayed for about 2 hours because of snow, and not only here, but also at Lubbock and Amarillo and Albuquerque, where we've had some bad weather, and so it's the whole system is kind of slowed down considerably. So we have had some delays, yes. However, our Houston flight at 6:45 is running about 10 minutes late, so It depends where the airplane's coming from a lot on the delays.
Field crews at Will Rogers have been busy all day, sanding and plowing the runways. For the most part, this job is never complete. As soon as one runway is cleared, another becomes snow-packed. The crews here say this amount of snow is no real problem, but the men will be here all night just in case Mother Nature decides to unleash her worst.
We have $79 million in carryover funds from last fiscal year, money that was collected but unspent. That money right now is figured to be spent for supplementals, and it's figured to be part of the governor's proposed budget for the coming fiscal year. So we would simply trade some of the old dollars for the new dollars that have not yet arrived in agency appropriations. That would make it possible to avoid the kinds of deep allocation cutbacks for those agencies that, for whom those cutbacks could possibly mean layoffs of employees or major interruptions of state services. It would not require any increased appropriations. It would not require any decreases in what we were going to do for supplementals or other areas. It would be a simple, clean solution to the problem of simply trading dollars that haven't arrived for dollars that are currently in hand.
And dozy doze, and little ivy divey, a kiddly divey too, wouldn't you? Irsy doze and dozy doze, a little irsy divey, a kiddly divey too, wouldn't you? Dum dum dee dee dee.
The guys are going to do a show tonight. When did you start?
This is Christmas Day, Vietnam. The guys here don't ask for much in Vietnam. In fact, the sergeant out here just said you're thrilled if you just wake up Christmas morning here. Here I am at Da Nang, better known as Dodge City. Yes, sir. Da Nang is one of my favorite stops, and I mean stop.
Our shows brought pictures of kids laughing over there and applauding and enjoying. Brian, I can't tell you how many letters I've got from parents, you know, who've lost their kid and said, you're the last one they saw.
Nice to be here at Da Nang, better known as Guadalcanal East. You haven't given up a single inch of mud, have you? But I love Da Nang. Where else can you scrape a whole base off your shoe? I want to thank the Provost Marshal for the wonderful protection we've been getting. 50 MPs with machine guns guarding the girls. And for me and Phyllis Diller, a pygmy with a blowgun.
So many people